Hello and welcome to, what's the show called? Rejected. Hello and welcome to Rejected Pilots. That's what it's called. That's the show. It's the show where we make pilots that are for shows and they're rejected, I guess. I don't know who's rejecting them, but I guess we just don't even give them a chance.
Just the universe in general.
That's it, exactly. Rejected by God.
Our inner board members high on cocaine are saying no to these particular pilots.
And they're on cocaine.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so with every episode, we need a topic, and today's topic, or prompts that we're going to use, is the Matrix TV show, but from the point of view of an agent.
Oh.
Or I guess the point of view is just the protagonist is an agent.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a funky one, right?
Ooh. Did you come up with this one, Chad? That's good.
I did, and it wasn't for the show. It just like hit me. I was like, "Ooh, that'd be kind of a cool thing." And I was like, "Oh, great, we could do this for Rejected Pilots." Because I was thinking, I don't remember what the impetus was. I was seeing something, and I remember I was watching it with my roommates, and I was like, this guy kind of reminds me of like Agent Smith, where he has this thing of like. Because Agent Smith is, obviously a parallel to Neo and kind of the opposite thing, but because he's having a crisis of destiny also. It's like I was destined to just be this, program with this very specific cause. And when they sent me off to go die, I chose not to, and then he becomes a virus.
Yep.
So I was like,
I cannot tell you how excited I am about this because this is like I unabashedly love the sequels. I had the Ultimate Collection where they interviewed all the philosophers like Dr. Cornel West about it, and so
super cool.
I'm actually a huge nerd for this, so I'm going to be like, all right, let's get the werewolves in there that we never got in the second one. Yeah. Like it was implied, but we never saw them.
Well, it's like that's the thing is the guys from Small Beans have a show called Frame Rate, and they talked about. I don't remember if they talked about the Matrix. No, I think they did. I think they went through the whole Matrix series. Or maybe it was the Sardonicast guys. It was somebody. I want to cite my sources. It was one of those two. And they brought up an interesting point that it was like, the first movie is the best movie as far as a movie goes. But there's still a lot of value in 2 and 3 because the first one is mostly just dealing with Plato's The Cave. And so 2 and 3 got to explore different philosophies and different philosophers. And so as a whole, I think there's a lot of value there. Although I think that the movie quality didn't quite live up to the first one.
Yeah, it got a little clunky in the plot, didn't it?
Well, part of it's hard is that 2 suffers from things that second movies tend to, suffer from. It's just like it's the middle of a book. So it's like you started 100 pages in and you went 300 pages and then you stopped. And then so it just feels weird and like nothing. There's that really long chase scene. And that's like 90% of what people say about that movie is it feels like one big chase scene,
Yep.
But I do think a lot of... What's that?
If done right, a la Mad Max Fury Road, perfect.
Right? 100%. Even Speed.
Oh, yeah.
But you're right. Mad Max is incredible. Yeah, super good. It's also so impressive because it's the same director from the old ones. And so you would think that like, this is like the young blood came and modernized it. But it's like, no, he always had the sensibilities. It's just the technology kind of caught up with him,
Oh, yeah. So speaking of which, considering that this is a 20-year-old movie, so if we're going back to the original Matrix, and apparently they are already shooting the sequel in San Francisco.
Yeah, they're making 4.
What's the time frame we're looking for? Are we looking at like pre the movie, during the movie, or like post Neo?
So that's interesting. Okay, so yeah, so I thought you meant like what decade because we can play with that. But you're right. What time period within the trilogy? That's a really good question. I don't know. What do you guys think? I think there's interesting things you can do with any of them.
I think the most options is going to be during, to where it's kind of with the war between the human resistance and the agents. So like either during the movie trilogy or just right up leading up to it,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can get with that. Let's see. So leading up, let me think about, because there's a lot you could do with leading up to.
Oh yeah.
That's
especially seeing as the last 2 movies technically happen over the course of just a couple of days. So.
Oh, right.
True.
You could have a pretty solid, because it's supposed to be, again, I'm showing my nerd here. It's supposed to be about 6 months between The Matrix and Reloaded. And then
that sounds okay.
Yeah, and then Reloaded and Revelations are real close to each other.
Are they? So that's funny because I thought they were far apart. But I go, okay, that works. Mm-hmm. If when they go to Zion in the third one, or like the opener is Zion, if I recall. that felt like it was kind of like, man, it's been a long time. And if all of that was supposed to have taken place only within like 8 months, that's a crazy.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure it was. I'm pretty sure it was supposed to be 6 months. I'd have to check, but that's also a pretty good. That'd be a pretty good time to set this in, because you do have the context of it's the same Matrix as the movies without being without having to supersede something and be like, okay, this is the next version of the last version. And then you've got you do have kind of a like at the beginning of The Dark Knight. Mm-hmm. where you got the criminals who are talking about like, nah, not today. I see the bat signal. I'm not gonna run into Batman.
Yeah.
You've got the potential for programs actually talking about the fact that there is the one who is here from the human side.
Well, if we did pre the Matrix, one, we could actually have it be a story about like an agent who stopped like another Neo.
Ooh.
And give him,
I like that.
Because I was thinking about like also what are big unexplained things from the movies that you could retroactively explain with a character, you know? So like the Animatrix did a good job with some of those, like the Final Flight of the Osiris, I think is what it's called, where it shows why Zion got found and what the people did to try to slow it down, you know? And so that group went and sacrificed themselves. So like you could kind of do that, like fitting in the in-between places if there's some kind of like interesting questions that we could answer.
Absolutely.
That'd be cool.
Well, in the perspective of an agent too, you kind of get the you get kind of the same. I want to say like the end result of a procedural almost, but from a real, like, because one of my favorite things about the first Matrix in particular is that first scene where Trinity escapes.
I love that too. I agree.
And they're working with the cops, and they're really like they're just kind of this characterized version of what the cops would think that the feds are.
Right.
So there's something that like I like the idea of an agent of an agent Johnson going around and essentially like some of it's day-to-day stuff, but he's stumbling across stuff that gets slowly stranger and stranger.
You know what? That's great. That makes me think of also from the Animatrix. Remember the detective story? It was like the noir they did.
Yeah. Yeah.
That makes me think of something like that. Imagine that same kind of story, but instead of us following the detective with like Trinity, it's like an agent who is like uncovering that, like he's getting clues and finding things. And, you know, he's like people he's tracking. He's seeing messages on their computer. So he starts to discover like the Nebuchadnezzar crew, you know, himself, almost like how, but instead of them trying to contact him to like, you know, bring him, he's just having to do this detective work to basically find it. And every once in a while he'll run into some situation and then have to, like, we can completely switch your temporary alliances during a scene, because if you're like following the agent and then he runs into like, you know, Cypher and they have to do kung fu fighting, you know, it's like that's actually like a scene where you'd be like, oh crap, like, you know, but then you also
gonna kill the human.
Yeah, exactly. Or vice versa, you're like worried for him because we've just been following this guy even though he's a bad guy. Every time he runs into Trinity, it's like, oh shit, I know that she's a badass because I've already seen the movies, you know.
I dig that.
But that would be hard to do before it. But again, that could happen anytime. It could happen even during. Because if it happened before it, like the average agent could whoop pretty much anybody on the Nebuchadnezzar. And then by the third movie, everybody can pretty much handle agents, you know? So it's like...
Yeah. Well, I like the thought... Yeah,
one and two. Maybe between 1 and 2 is a good place to set it. Between the Matrix and the Matrix Reloaded.
Or even like during 2.
Yeah.
You could have like... So, you know, he could have interacted with the Merovingian, and maybe that led to something of why, like, the wife wanted to talk to Neo and things like that, you know?
True.
Because the Merovingian's doing all... We could expand some of the universe stuff that they touched on and didn't do much with.
Oh, yeah. Well, because the Merovingian specifically, like, the fact that he traffics in rogue programs...
Yeah, right.
And the fact that he is, you know, more or less an independent within the system that... Like I like the idea that there's pushback there, and the fact that and you could really explore the essentially the crew that the Merovingian has put together that are in some way, shape, or form a match for agents.
Yeah, right. Well, and it's also like it's Detective Noir 101, right? Like shady characters who traffic and stuff like that. People who like shouldn't let them exist, but are kind of like, you know, like you're more useful to me and it's not my job, you know, like if Matrix ATF finds you, then they can deal with you. But I'm actually here because you need some answers, and guys like you are useful, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I guess one thing we got to figure out then is like, what is the want for this agent guy? Like, it's hard to say what he would do if we don't know what he wants.
Mm-hmm.
What if we set up his motivation as we establish him as being kind of like almost sympathizing with humans and trying to give them a peaceful existence within the Matrix. So when he sees people who are trying to like wake people up and it goes wrong, he's like, look at all the pain and suffering that they're causing.
I love
Let
that.
me alleviate that and maintain order. You know, that could be his motivation.
I love that. That could also be a cool way. We could tie him in with the Oracle that way too. And like you could have a bit where it's like he goes and meets the Oracle and you think it's going to be the first time and then you realize they have history, because that was kind of the Oracle shtick too. Like she obviously worked to help the machines enslave humanity permanently. She didn't necessarily vouch, for them to let us free, but she did her best to make a world that like we can, work in. Nice. And I think it was her idea. No, maybe it was someone else's idea. It was someone's idea to do the paradise thing first and it didn't work. And then they tried the hellscape thing and it didn't work. And then she came up with, which is... What's really interesting about it is that she doesn't say, I decided, hey, let's just do the realistic thing. She said then she came up with a version of the world that worked for us. So then it leaves an open question of like, what was the real world actually like? Because this version is just something in her head. Like there's so many cool ideas that you can really expand on. And the werewolves.
And the werewolves. Well, the interesting thing about that is I think Josh kind of nailed it, because the interesting thing there is essentially an agent who is a true believer,
right?
That's like, no, we're the saviors of humanity here.
Absolutely.
Like I really dig that. Like
that's the assassin from Serenity.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Chadwick Boseman as this character. Like, can you?
That was
Chiwetel Ejiofor.
Yeah. Oh, Chiwetel Ejiofor. Yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah,
sorry. R.I.P. Chadwick Boseman. Shit. Sorry.
Absolutely. R.I.P. But you're right, though. I mean, that kind of character, though, and so they're so unflappable. And so then, of course, the thing you have to do with it, the only thing you can do with that character is then flap him.
Yes.
So I guess that's a question. What would be the, this probably isn't pilot material, but at some point you would need to kind of know where you're going of what's the thing that eventually makes him change his mind, Maybe he does just completely become a real, actual human sympathizer and like wants to switch teams. That's something they never really messed with. They never messed with like an agent switching teams.
Yeah.
What if with this agent specifically, they program him to value humans as part of his coding for maintaining order, but it goes too far to where he begins rebelling.
Maybe he realizes like what the Oracle did wrong, and was like, hey, you made it that far, good on you. And you kind of helped the humans later when you had, when you felt bad. What's up?
This might be, sorry, I'm trying to, this might be too much, but what if the thing that humanizes him in the end of the first episode is him literally meeting a young Morpheus? Like Morpheus on the crew of the of the Horus, let's say, and like he meets young Morpheus, who's already a believer in the thought that humanity can be saved, and Morpheus is kind of like a foil to this. Like he's a true believer in the purest sense of humanity surviving, and like because everybody knows that an agent cannot be messed with at this time. If we did set a pre Matrix, can you imagine like the first of all the street cred that Morpheus would have for talking his way out of a fight with an agent, but also like that particular, and that might be movie material too, but that would be a very interesting turn. Maybe not at the end of the episode, but at the end of the
season,
point of a season. Yeah.
Well, what could be cool with Morpheus is kind of do the Seven thing, where the main character is, Morgan Freeman, and he wants to quit. He's kind of given up on humanity. And then he sees what the ultimate evil version of that looks like. And then it brings him back around. And at the end of the movie, they ask him like, hey, where are you going to be? And he's like, I'll be around. So he didn't give up. He's not going to retire. We could have that be like this interaction that they have could be how Morpheus became the Morpheus we know and love. Because when we meet him, he is a die-hard believer, especially because you kind of think, I made the assumption that he kind of had especially because everyone on the Nebuchadnezzar believes the same stuff that he does. So I was like, okay, this is just what the humans are about. But then you get into the second and third movie and you realize like, oh, these are like the weirdos. Like most people don't believe in this like magic and stuff, and prophecies. And So maybe he was kind of in between and then had an interaction that made him change. It could be even as simple as just like, I saw a miracle, I had an interaction with agents that it shouldn't happen. So the prophecy must be real,
Yeah.
Maybe one of his crew is about to accidentally destroy like some humans that are still plugged in, and the agent like sacrifices a copy of himself to save them. And Morpheus is like, well, now I have questions about this. I
don't hate that. Right. Because then that gives us a good way to get that character out of the story so that he doesn't, you don't constantly ask, hey, where was so-and-so? Where was Johnson during, episode 2? Exactly. And tie you up to, having us start with Morpheus, how we remember him. I think that's great.
Yeah. Nice.
Like that.
So I agree with Carrie, though. I want to integrate some of that, ghost stuff. So that would be great stuff for him to be like investigating, because it would make sense that agents would also have like internal affairs. And so they would be like, hey, there's, that haunted house episode from the Animatrix. That kind of stuff could be happening where it's like, we have a glitch somewhere. I have to isolate and control to keep, the humans from seeing. And we got to neuralize everybody. And so,
that'd be super fun.
I think, you could go wild. You could have it. It'd be even kind of cool is that because of things like that, the episodes could feel very thematically anthological. I don't know what word to use, but you could have like a horror episode just out of nowhere, because it could just be like, oh yeah, there's like ghost in this one place and he has to try to deal with that, and then most of the show could be kind of like a neo-noir, but then you have like these like, off-ball episodes.
Well, like damn, now I want to watch the show.
Yeah, as usual. Well, I like that because like you have a whole episode because you kind of establish that as a kind of a subroutine of a matrix of an agent is cleaning up rogue programs.
Yeah, so, they gotta be doing stuff when they're not hunting the Nebuchadnezzar crew. Yeah.
And right there you have an automatic tension with the Merovingian and his crew, because when like if he goes and talks to the Merovingian about like I need information because let's keep going with the like there's supposed to be a mass breakout of people, a mass removal of people from the Matrix, and human beings are going to die, and that I'm usually here to clean up you people.
Right. You know what? I love that. I love that idea, though. What if there was like a Locke type character who's like, out of his mind, and he's gonna, because remember, Neo during the Red Lady scene, Neo asked Morpheus, "Hey, why?" I'm glad we did this because all of us like know the Matrix so well. It's really easy to like, pull references for a lot more than I knew Men in Black. Okay, so. But in the Red Lady scene, Neo's like, well, why don't you just basically yank everybody out? And he's like, oh, because they're not ready. You have to like wait until they're primed a certain kind of way, or else it's very dangerous and they won't let themselves. What if you had like a psychopath? That would be so fun too, because then we could have it where our protagonist agent actually is of better moral character than one of the humans. He doesn't, that guy's not indicative of all of the humans, obviously, but there's like a Locke type guy who goes insane, and he's like, I'm just gonna do an actual mass exodus and just yank out 100 people. And and or like a whole city, maybe, make the stakes really high because it's not going to happen. So, it's like he's going to yank an entire city. But we could mess with stuff like that because there's so many, however many possibly trillions of humans hooked into the Matrix. You could have him like, that could be almost like a Unabomber situation where it's like whole cities just die when this guy does this because he thinks that, it's worth blah, blah, blah. So maybe he does it on a smaller scale. But then someone's like, see, it doesn't work. And he's like, no, I just didn't do it right. I'm going to do it on this bigger scale. And next time I'll do it right. And so like now there's also like a ticking clock. Right.
Like a housing project. Like he's going to go, he's like, these are the people that are in the worst situation.
Okay.
And I'm going to unleash or like just an apartment. And like the agents come to investigate and they find not just like one apartment, but like multiple rooms or like a couple adjoining apartments that are essentially like all the avatars there are dead or disconnected.
Well, that's almost like our opening scene, right? Is him coming to investigate this housing project, and there's just all of these dead bodies, and it's like there's no cause of death. We have no idea what happened. People look like this because it's the same thing like when I forgot her name, but when Cypher was killing everybody, and the one girl is like, not like this. It's like you just die, like nothing happened. You just fall over dead. Mouse. Okay. Oh yeah. Well, Mouse was one of them. The blonde chick is one I was thinking of. But yeah, you're right.
Oh yeah, I'll
Those
remember
guys. Yeah, yeah. But exactly like those guys, where it's just like you just get the thing yanked, and that's what it feels like. I think what would be cool is that could be the starter, and then in the future he maybe like it could be a big set piece. It's like a gigantic hotel.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
there you go.
Kind of like the movie Skyscraper or something like that. It's like this huge, really beautiful kind of like special, skyscraper hotel, and so it's like that's like the new target, and so that's kind of this ticking bomb is him having to investigate and figure out what the heck's going on, because he's having to do all this investigating from the Matrix, but a lot of this is happening in the real world.
Yep. He's only getting half the story at any given time, given point. Like, yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Think it could be cool. You'd have to think about the logistics of how he's doing mass yanks of people, because theoretically you're supposed to go and how did the guys get Neo? Because he gets pulled out by a Sentinel.
Remember? They had to locate him.
Oh, did the Sentinel just like drop his body somewhere?
They had to locate him to get him out.
Thing.
I think they basically trick the system into thinking that he's dead, and they flush the body, and then they go and they pick it up.
They missed out on a cool opportunity to have him get dumped into like a mass grave. That could have been pretty cool.
Oh man, yeah, nightmare fuel. Here we go.
Yeah, totally. It could have just. Well, they did them in the Animatrix. Had some really crazy like mass grave scenes.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
In the first and second Revelations, yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, so yeah, I think that's cool. And so then what I was trying to think about how to tie in like werewolves and things like that, right? I was thinking one of the ways could be that like, or not the way, well, I guess the way to tie it in is that what if he was investigating some kind of glitches, but the glitches are why he ended up accidentally getting some access to maybe some messaging from the real world. Mm-hmm. And then that became like clues. And then maybe the messaging had something to do with like the Merovingian. So then he went to go talk to the Merovingian. Like maybe the Merovingian has like a virus or something that they could use to do mass exoduses.
There you go. Or he knows the guy who knows the guy. Yeah, like that.
He's like a broker.
Like that dude who runs the train station. That's like halfway between the mainframe and the Matrix. Like, right. You've got a linchpin character who is a program like that who is just the again some sort of like subroutine who is useful in a past version of the Matrix but isn't now, but could unplug mass of people all at once.
Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Right. And maybe that's why. Maybe it was like he had they decided like maybe every few years they multiply and limit how many like accesses each subroutine and program has, and so he's from a time period where he had like too much, and so they're like, we don't use that one anymore, but he still technically has the keys, he's just locked off. And so then we can also have a MacGuffin. There could physically be like an object that represents like a program where if he can physically hand it to someone who does have access to the mainframe of like the real Matrix, then that person would then have the ability to do blah, blah, blah,
Exactly.
Love that. Fantastic.
Kind of fun. Because they had that with like the keys in the third one, like the key master or whatever. Yeah. So they've done like the physical MacGuffin thing before, and it all, exactly. It all represents something. I mean, okay. So how does this episode flow? Because we're kind of also talking about like season-long arc almost, which maybe is the way to do it. I think
we're going for a mini-series type thing, like 10 episods.
I could see that. Yeah, it's hard to do. It would be hard to do this as like a King of Queens and have like 100 episodes.
Yeah, no way.
I like that we know where we're going, or at least we've got an idea where we're going. I also like the idea of taking this, and because the Wachowskis are so interested in kind of subverting expectations in ways, or subverting like what you think is going to happen. Mm-hmm. I also like the idea of taking this and kind of flipping a trope, like flipping tropes, like instead of having a getting chewed out by your boss scene as a la a police procedural, you have we start with police investigating what looks like a mass murder of some kind with no marks on the body in a housing project or a house of some kind. And then the agents arrive, and they're doing that. They're doing their sweep and survey of the scene. basically they kind of settle on the only person that would have the utility to do this would be rogue programs. So they have the discussion of going and talking to the Merovingian. They have that conversation, and basically, like, I like the idea of this agent being the guy, like, because he's the true believer, he's got, like, he's the only one that's going to go talk to the Merovingian. He's the only one that's going to go talk to the Oracle.
Well, and maybe not just because it's like a bravery thing. It's like he kind of doesn't want anyone else knowing that he does that because it, is kind of sketch.
Yeah,
it would be considered gauche for an agent to go and be hanging out in those kinds of places and stuff like that, and talking to the Oracle and things.
Right,
definitely.
Because he can show up, and it could the opening shot could be like the police on duty telling him, like, it's not a gas leak. We checked for that kind of stuff. We're trying to think of what these things could be. We have no idea. And like you said, but I wish there was something more.
I've got the line. He looks over at the body and goes, "No, this is something else."
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm wondering, especially the way that what's his name talks. Yeah, this is something else.
Lieutenant, your men are already dead.
Yeah, exactly like that. Well, I'm trying to think which would also be fun because that would feel like a lot like a callback. What would be a good way, though, other than just a hunch, to get him to want to go to the Merovingian? See, what I do think could be cool is that after he talks to the Merovingian, maybe the Merovingian sends like goons after him, and that could be him running into like the werewolves and stuff like that.
That'd be great.
Oh, but we did say earlier though that if we did it beforehand, then it could make sense where like he sees some kind of like, well, what if the glitch thing that unplugs all the people. Real quick, actually, something you said earlier. You said that the only thing it could do is rogue program. That's a good point, because if a human was to do it, theoretically, they'd have to literally go out there, fly around, and physically unplug all these things. So it would make sense that it would have to be a rogue program. But I was going to say, what if the glitch that allows him to mass unplug everyone actually just also is like not, it doesn't pair well with the Matrix programming, so it does cause random glitches too. And then you could have like, ghost werewolves, whatever, this, that, and the other thing, and then they kind of look into that. Or it doesn't even have to be those physical manifestations yet. That could be what do you call it, the like the haunted house episode where there's just like doors that open to infinity and things like that.
Yeah.
And so maybe he gets a clue, and then that leads him to the Merovingian.
I think I got a light bulb for this. Also a way to keep mobile. All right, it's the program is called the driver.
Okay.
Like a driver for a printer.
And
it's like a touch point for older versions of the Matrix. Mm-hmm. So it can, like you're saying, it can actually like physically affect programs by basically returning them to a prior state.
Oh, that's dope.
And the way it can get humans at, like, basically like let's go back to the building thing. If it could essentially go up to a house and put its hand on a house, and the house would, because that house didn't exist in a prior version of the Matrix, it would kind of glitch out, and everything inside would just be immediately rejected from the program. And hence your hotel thing.
Right.
And like, I kind of like the idea of like, he's just up on the antenna of the Empire State Building going like, here we go.
Well,
like,
and is it a person? I like that a lot. That's a cool idea. I was thinking like a physical MacGuffin, but I actually like the idea. It would be like, you could totally do the thing where it's like a child or something,
oh, dang.
And have the very, X3 when they got the kid who like, can make people's powers go away, kind of, it's like the MacGuffin / person situation. That could be a lot of fun. So then it could be like this childlike program who's being manipulated by this real life, actor.
That's perfect.
On the human side. And then that could be kind of interesting too, if depending on how much you wanted to jump back and forth, but you could also have that there's drama on the human side too, or like 1 out of 3 episodes could be, because we need to know what he's up to. So there could also be like maybe young Morpheus or something like that was like, trying to stop him from stuff that he's doing, or figure, he has his own kind of investigation going on, trying to figure out what he's up to. And that could even be how our Agent Johnson and Morpheus eventually have to team up, because Johnson has to take care of certain things on his side and Morpheus has to take care of things on his side.
Yeah, like they link up in the Matrix, and you kind of have a reverse situation of what happened with Cypher, right? And it could be because Morpheus is essentially the freshie on the team. Like he's brand new. He's like Lawrence Fishburne from Apocalypse Now.
Apocalypse Now, right? Yeah,
14-year-old
when he was Larry Fishburne. Actually, a good example of that, or a good idea with that could be, we could also flip like the Cypher thing where first off, Larry could be like a junior crewman on a ship, and the leader of the ship is the guy. So then it's him, and we have like that story of how, like, you know, sometimes you have to like disobey orders and basically like, you know, mutiny because the captain's gone insane. He's trying to get everyone murdered. And then it would be kind of fun if like they have to team up to kill the guy. So Morpheus basically, like, the guy hooks up to go to a part of the Matrix, but Morpheus actually like sends the coordinates different, so he ends up in the room with Agent Johnson, and that could be like the end. Is that like those two have to battle it out, and Agent Johnson gets to put the
Perfect.
like at the last minute when you think this guy's almost going to get away with it, like at the end of the whole season, and then it's just like.
Well.
Yeah.
Exactly right. Well, because it's funny because Agent Smith was so cool. A lot of times he did root for him anyway, like secretly, because you're just like, "Ooh, that's badass. Give it to him." So now you could do it unironically. You could be like, "Yeah,
really good,
Agent, put that," you know. And it would be cool too because by the third movie they did like the first movie is like machines are evil, but by the third movie they really tried to play with like, no, there's like different sides and teams and ideas, and you know, even the God baby, you know, listens to Neo and is like, okay, I'll hear you out. What do you want? So this would be a good way for us to expand that idea that like, no, there's actually a really complex world in the machines too, and that there's plenty of, you know, groups that don't. And this is kind of like, you know, we didn't want to go to the war with Iraq, but nobody went and shot anyone to stop it from happening. So we kind of understand that this is what it is, and we don't really like it. There could be a lot of people who don't like how the machines handled the humans long term, but it's like the majority decided to go with this, and it wasn't worth, you know, a civil war over. So, but there's a lot of people who are kind of like, I'm not so into it anymore, you know, so they're willing to help. And then just the people who don't care either way, like the Merovingian and the train conductor, like they're just, you know, out for themselves. You know, they're basically just gangsters.
Yeah.
They just want to get as much power as they can. So
they're there to survive in what is essentially like an ever evolving immortality in a way.
Yeah. Well said.
Yeah, I'm into that.
Well said.
Okay, so yeah, let's say so our agent goes and finds the scene, and not only is everyone dead, but the place has like weird like glitch out kind of stuff going on, right?
Yeah.
Maybe even like maybe the Matrix itself like got like, you know, status reports and knows that there's something glitched out there, and whenever that happens they don't let like police and stuff go in there, so the place is like,
I've got a cool idea
off.
What if the police are like, something's weird here, like you open a door to one hotel room and it goes to like another room, and it's just like these rooms are all like mismatched, you know?
Well, okay, so maybe that happens, and then they like have to kill them,
yeah,
you know, or neuralize them or something.
Too much.
They have established that they can kind of like neuralize people, so, you know, they like rewrite their life or something, so they never become a cop or something. So maybe they have to do something like that. We could even like eat up some minutes with something like that. You could have like a really weird, creepy, trippy scene where it's like this cop's life being like undone, and then, you know, it's just, you just watch it through the eyes of one of them to understand that like, oh, this is a thing that happens.
Or you even have some other agents ask our protagonist and go, do we neutralize or rewrite? He goes, rewrite.
Yeah,
rewrite,
because he wants to, you know,
make
the human life is, you know, he's into the sanctity of human life as much as he can save it. But you can't have, you know, regular human cops running around knowing about, you know, glitches and things like that.
Exactly.
And then, like I was saying, maybe, you know, the glitch has like, maybe there's like a mirror, but there's like computer messaging that like types out on the mirror or something like that, because it accidentally, you know, is showing you, you know, and then it has like information you can't really understand, but then it's like signed by the Merovingian or something like that.
Ooh, that'd be dope.
It's maybe that's a little much, you know, I don't know if you would sign, but you know, you get the idea though. Like there could be, you know, it's MV, but so that can then get him onto the trail of looking, or it could even just be some kind of phrase that is like, oh, I don't know what that means. You know, who might know what that means is the Merovingian. So he's not even going to him yet thinking he's involved. He's just trying to be like, hey, do you have any info? Then the Merovingian tries to get him killed. Homie runs into werewolves, and then he goes, okay, that guy's more connected than I thought he was. I need to go back, and now I am looking for him.
Oh yeah,
nice.
Okay,
that's a great pilot arc right there.
You know, it kind of is, I guess. You're right.
Yeah.
It's got a fight scene. It's got some mystery.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
you got
totally
you
true.
got that hook real quick in there with the like you're playing it off like a murder happened, and then the agents show up and we figure out that's who we're following. Like,
Well, and I like your idea of like, let's say it was even like a trailer park or something, and it's like, how is everyone in a trailer park dead? Like it couldn't be a gas leak and kill every single person in all separate trailer parks. Like there's something really weird.
that's better.
I like it a lot.
Something like that. I think that'd be really neat. And then like you said, it's like you open up the door to like one trailer park and it takes you into another one, or you go into the bathroom or something like that, and then you end up like going outside or something.
Because open up the door and you look out the window and you see essentially like the same agent opening the door,
right?
And he just like turns around and he goes, it appears it may be radiation. You police officers are going to need to clear the premises immediately.
Yeah, or they have like hazmat guys show up and like go and grab all the cops, because they have to like, oh, we're gonna go take you for decontamination.
Yep.
Yes.
And then we can have that nice little horror moment of his like entire.
Oh man,
because I'm imagining a guy like in like a white room, and then maybe even like the what's his face, the architect, and have like all the TV screens, and it's like showing his life, and then maybe it could show like a scene where like his life, it like rewinds into a point where he like took a left turn, but instead it like changes and then has him take a right turn. Oh, you could even do the deja vu thing with that. Then that just like trickles down, and then we can like fast forward through his whole life again, and now he just never even became a cop, and he's like a totally different guy or whatever.
Yeah.
He's like sitting at a banker's office, like, I processed that loan for you.
Or he's in like a McDonald's or something across the street from the place, and then he's just watching from the distance or whatever.
Just having the most hardcore deja vu. I like that a lot.
That's awesome.
Like, I feel like I was there at one point, We could even have like really quick like cutbacks to the guy inside of the tank, like having like, convulsive shocks or whatever, because they're having to go in and like rewrite his brain.
Ooh, yeah.
That could be kind of fun.
Yeah, the body doesn't.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And then, you can have and then I like the idea of having like it's good in the first episode to have like a really big fight scene. So you'd have to come up with some kind of, I mean, you could do anything. I don't, well, I'm trying to think of something that would make it more Matrix-y,
Could he go into that place with all the back doors from Matrix Reloaded, where he's running into different places through the hallway,
Totally. But there's like,
that could be cool.
Maybe it's like also he can't necessarily handle all of the assailants at once. So then he's doing like, it could be very Jackie Chan, where he's like doing that kind of stuff to separate them, so he can just like give the business to one of them for a bit and then move on and then come back and then give the business to another one.
Oh, that'd be great.
Like
that could be cool.
Well, and then you can kind of get a little bit of you get a bit of a semi walking tour of the of the different you first you can see some sets through the doors, which is always fun. Yeah. But you can also see you see people come through as like just people that are the Merovingian thugs, and like then you see one of them pop up as the werewolf, or one of them pop up like, because they already established the twins were ghosts.
Right.
You could have ghouls, fucking vampire could pop out, like, and they are like getting more feral. And all of a sudden he's a little bit overwhelmed, and it kind of ends up like it goes from an agent just handling business to upgrades, yeah.
Yes.
Well, so what if he is cleverly handling the situation, but eventually just kind of got a little too much, and it looks like it's all over? And this might be a little corny, but what if he gets help from what was that guy's name who was basically the assistant of the Oracle?
Seraph.
Yeah, what if Seraph shows up
sunglasses
and kind of helps him out, and then that could lead us into a scene where he talks to the Oracle, and then we can get some of that, not necessarily a save the cat, but kind of like get a little bit of the background on the guy, like, oh, okay, he already knows her, and then she helps us establish that he's not like Agent Smith, like he doesn't detest, the humans like most of the other agents seem to.
I like that a lot.
And he could be like asking for some kind of help, and she obviously gives him some impossibly esoteric answer that you can't do anything with until we're perfectly ready for them to go, oh, that's what she was talking about.
Yeah,
I like that.
That's perfect.
That could be kind of fun. I mean, that could even actually be how to end it.
Yeah.
And then him just knowing that, like, she's like, so what are you going to do now? And he's like, I have to go talk to the Merovingian again.
Perfect.
You know,
That's a perfect episode ending right there.
Good button.
Yeah, it's he faces the camera, walks off camera, and just rack focus to her, face or whatever. Like, how long are we going to see her? Yeah, that could be kind of fun. I wonder, is that dude still alive who played the Merovingian? Can we use him?
Oh, probably. I think
he's in his 60s now, but
he did that in Sahara, and
that's right.
Okay. Yeah, you could.
Well, we can kind of play with how like the Oracle, she changes faces.
Oh, right.
Throughout the trilogy, you could do that with him too, because he's just a program.
You're absolutely right. We have Matthew McConaughey play him.
Yes.
Bring it around.
Bring it right.
This is my older version.
Everything.
All right.
I love French. In fact, I love the French language, especially to curse with.
Exactly right. Exactly.
That's great.
Oh, but who's gonna play Monica Belushi's character?
Monica Bellucci.
Just
still
her
looks
again,
the same.
right. No joke. Seriously. Seriously. Yeah, no, I'm into that. Well, and so let's talk about that. What fun stuff? Because we've already seen what we've seen with the Merovingian before. So if we're gonna go back to him, we want to do some more with him. So because last time he just kind of sat around in his club, and Homegirl had some kind of weird, weak motivations around Neo.
Around to screw this guy.
I think there was some extended universe thing that made that make more sense. It was more fleshed out, but they just didn't do a lot with it. And the best thing you can go with is that she's a emotional vampire.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And so it's kind of like she likes to try to extract, and that putting people in those weird situations and things like that.
She draws off that.
Right. And it could even be before she was around or something. Maybe this is the Merovingian, he's a little different because he doesn't have her reining him in,
Yeah.
But he's definitely a broker. We could even have a little bit of conflict before he even gets there, where the Merovingian is I'm not talking to this guy. And so that's also when he, maybe he has to go and take out guards or something first, and then finally gets to the audience, hey, I'm here to talk to you. So then they get to have their talk, and he's trying to figure out this information. And then later, the Merovingian kind of has his get him kind of thing. And so when he's going through those back doors or whatever, that's when werewolves and crap start trying to get him. And
well, what if he's what if it is because it's 30 years earlier, a la young Morpheus? What if the Merovingian is a little bit more ruthless, kind of in the Kiss of the Dragon, the Jet Li movie, where the first intro you get in the villain is the villain literally in the kitchen, just his fist beating the crap out of some guy that you don't learn the name or anything. It's just it's a dude who's doing a full on shakedown, and then he wipes off his knuckles and he's like, "Hi, how you doing?"
I'm into that.
Kind of like a young Don Corleone thing going.
Or what if he's just straight up torturing someone? What if you're in a dungeon-y kind of looking thing, and it's lit by shitty fluorescent lights, and there's knives and stuff, and him turning around with an apron and taking it off, and then into the suit.
Oh, and you got a
what brings you to my office?
You got a new level of sociopath.
Yeah. Upgrades. He's I love beating people up in French, So no, I'm into that. I'm super into something like that. Like you said, just being a little, he's a little less refined. He's younger. A little bit more raw, angry. Yeah, exactly right. Also, I do feel maybe in the pilot too, if you're going to establish stuff, it is probably important to try to establish a little bit of the real world.
Yeah.
Something with, young Morpheus. Well, and maybe it could just be something simple Morpheus is our POV character in the, what'd you call it? The ship?
The Horus.
Yeah, the Horus or something like that.
Yep.
So say, they're in the Horus, and he's our POV guy, and we just hang out with them long enough to know that they're a part of some kind of weird clandestine kind of Splinter Cell mission. Mm-hmm. And we know with Flight of the Osiris that was the case, and it was a good thing. No one's mad about what they did, so maybe this isn't any different. And then as the season progresses, it's us with Morpheus realizing that this mission's kind of bunk. And the guy who's running it, that's kind of I'm not into.
He's a little Colonel Kurtzy, getting a little out there,
Right? Yeah.
What if so we do establish some humans here? What if we spend most of the first episode with the agent investigating the murder, having to go talk to the Merovingian, getting kicked from the Merovingian over to talking to Seraph and the Oracle. And then like right at the end, he crosses paths with young Morpheus, but he doesn't know it's young Morpheus. And like gives chase, young Morpheus gets away. And then when he unplugs and he's back in the ship, like the first thing they say is, Morpheus, what did you see? And then like, wow,
I like that. That's cool.
Yeah.
Because that'd be a pretty good drop.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Really good.
Well, you'd have to. I don't know how many fight scenes you want in just the pilot, but I do really like the idea of having it show that like he's got basically enemies on all sides. You know, it's like Merovingians sending like werewolf guys after him, and then the freaking. But he like I love the idea of having him run into it because we've seen that 100 times from the other direction. You know, we've seen them like turn a corner and oh shit, agent. You know, so I really like the idea of the agent having that like turn a corner and like oh that's more. You know, there's some guy, and then maybe like Morpheus is involved in the middle of something. Well, because Morpheus actually it would make sense for those guys to be around because they're the ones who are making it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
like they're
we can
basically
even have
the
a scene of
terrorists.
them showing the code and being like, something fishy's going on. Like let's send the new guy in, and then it's just Morpheus, and then at the very end they're like, Morpheus, what'd you see? And the audience is like, you know.
Oh yeah, that's true.
That'd be pretty sick.
Especially if that's your big reveal that it's like Morpheus, or maybe like it's just because we'd have to recast obviously, so it's just some young black guy, so no one really kind of knows who he is. So finally at the end you do the name drop finally as a big thing of like Morpheus, you know, and it's like oh that's Morpheus, like oh crazy, you know.
That could be his first encounter with an agent where he's like, whoa, you know.
Oh, that would have been cool
Because he's been through the red lady training or the red dress lady training.
Yeah.
So then he sees that and he's like, whoa, you know.
No, that'd be kind of neat if this was the first agent that he ran into. That would be fun.
Yeah.
And then, well, that would even be so interesting too if it was the first agent he ran into and it was like kind of a good guy, you know. So then it made things so complicated over time when he started to realize, you know.
Well, and you could also see I could also see the like you know, him being sent in alone, and like you can immediately establish the captain as a bit of a psychotic prick.
Totally.
It was like it's just kind of like he's like, what? Why are you sending him in alone? It's like he has to learn somehow.
Yeah.
And then just something like that. I think I sounded a little too Karen-y right there, but
well, but maybe he's got like a chip on his shoulder with him because he does question things and stuff like that. So So it's almost like, you know, I'm not going to kill him, but like if I put him in a situation that I don't think he'll make it out of, then, stuff happens, you know. Yeah. He wants to try to keep like the sycophants as tight as he can. And so.
Because I can totally see Morpheus being the guy who's always questioning things.
Oh, 100%.
Even from a young age. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Yeah, it'd be interesting too to do some Morpheus Oracle stuff too, you know.
Yeah. His first encounters there and everything. That'd be really cool.
Mm-hmm. Or the Oracle like planning on like, oh, I have another person I'm going to meet, you know, soon or whatever. And it's like, you know, she knows like she has to talk to Morpheus. Like that could be kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could all be neat. So I'm trying to think of what, I mean, yeah, I think we got
That's a pilot right there.
I mean, that's definitely at least a 22-minute pilot. And it could probably be a 40-something minute pilot if you just have a slower pace.
I could see that being a good slow burn.
I think it could. I would like to see that. I think we always compare everything to last time we did Men in Black meets True Detective. This is kind of like The Matrix meets True Detective.
It's true. Next week, SpongeBob meets True Detective.
You know what's funny? I've actually been thinking about that. I've been thinking about just getting like a randomizer for like TV shows and just like spinning two and being like, okay, we got to do a crossover of this and this.
Be like, that'd be fun, actually.
It's got to be like Dallas, SpongeBob.
It's like every 80s and 90s movie. It's like, oh, it's Die Hard, but on a boat or in a plane or in a hockey rink. Like,
or every horror movie it's Jaw or it's Psycho, but it's in the ocean or it's in the you know, whatever. Yes. They always use that poll quote of like it does to showers what, you know, Jaws did to the ocean kind of crap. And
that might be fun to do a randomizer where we have a genre, and then like a setting, and then like a lead actor, and then we just go.
You know what I'm saying? I think that could be kind of fun. Yeah,
that could be fun.
At least try it and see if that could be like the way.
It's just always Matthew McConaughey. Yes, we keep getting Matthew McConaughey.
Or is that South Park episode? It's just always Adam Sandler. Movie pop. Okay, yeah. Let's talk about that. That might be at least next time we can try it and see if we like it because that could be fun. Okay. My concern is I'm just like, what if it gives us a pile that you're like, I have no idea what to do with this.
We've got to have like each of us have a mulligan we can use once.
Oh, okay, that's
Just
not bad.
once.
Yeah, you can get like a respin. Yeah, for sure.
I'll be like, I spend my mulligan on this one. Boom.
No, I'm not mad at that. In like a season.
Yes.
Okay, sweet. So, I mean, yeah, dude. I mean, I like all that. I think that's awesome.
That was great.
I guess
I'd watch it.
I totally would. I want to now. Yeah, for sure. Now we're gonna see The Matrix 4, and it's gonna be whack.
I'm gonna get on Twitter and be like, "Hey, Wachowski siblings, check this out, please." You know, yeah.
Hey, all.
when we push this out there.
Here's our soft treatment. Yeah, no, because I totally agree. I think like a nice strong miniseries.
Yes.
It's like a. I mean, a lot of things should be that anyway now. Like I'm watching. I'm loving WandaVision right now, and it's it's like it feels like a long movie. There's elements that make it feel episodic, especially because they're switching around and it's like a different decade every episode. But it's like it's cool when you get this kind of like 9-hour movie because they really get the time to let things breathe and kind of get you into it versus just having the 2-hour experience. And honestly, after the first Matrix, a lot of the sequel stuff probably would have benefited from being like an HBO show.
That's true.
It probably would have been hard back then with budgets, how shows were done back then.
Right.
But nowadays, like you could totally pull it off,
And that Game of Thrones is a testament to that. As long as you stick the landing.
Well, Game of Thrones. What's interesting is that the CGI only got better. By the last couple episodes, the dragons and stuff look amazing. Like there was a little bit of, like getting there kind of stuff in the first handful of seasons. And as the dragons started to get bigger, it was kind of like a little weird in like season 5. But by season 8 and 7, I mean everything looks incredible.
Oh yeah.
Super expensive show. The Matrix is tough because you have a lot of like what's it called? Game of Thrones has everything's real and then you like add a dragon. The Matrix would be like everything and certain scenes would be fake, so that would be kind of hard. But it's not like Warhammer, it's like there still would be a lot of people just being in houses and being in the street and stuff, in the Matrix. It's actually the real world that would be the harder one than the Matrix.
True.
Because the real world's all like pipes and tunnels and, giant empty caverns and the blotted out sun and
all CGI and set pieces. Yeah.
Yeah, basically. Right. Yeah. And sentinels and stuff like that. We got to do some sentinel stuff.
Got to. Not in the pilot, but in the season for sure.
Yeah. It's like doing a Star Wars without, TIE fighters or something. Like you just, yeah.
Gotta get there.
You gotta have them. You gotta have them. That and Death Stars. Yeah, so I get we got a few minutes left, so I'm thinking just like what's some other season stuff that we could do, because I really like how we were talking about some of the long arc stuff, and I think like the ending and everything could be cool. What could be a way to get what radicalizes Morpheus? Because I like the idea of him not starting out this big deep believer. Obviously, some of it would be his interaction with the Oracle.
Yeah.
I like you could put a bit of the refusal of the call thing from the monomyth in there, like he goes and talks to the Oracle, and he's one of the first like humans to talk to the Oracle, really.
Yeah.
At this point, and she gives him a prophecy that, because she tells him that he will find the one, but we don't know what the rest of that prophecy was. So. We could throw in a little bit of that where he's like, totally. that's bull. Like he's there to question everything. Like that's what Morpheus is. And this kind of like, calcifies a core of his character.
And he questions everything. And this is the thing that actually stood up to his questioning. So now it's the thing that he really believes in, where maybe his real life experience with the real world and like the crazy, commander, like that doesn't hold up to his scrutiny. And so that made him kind of be like, okay, well that is kind of whatever, but this Oracle thing came through. And again, we also have a pretty big situation, right? Like he was basically a part of a terrorist organization that was going to destroy a lot of his own people. And it took, the guy from the enemy team, to kind of help explain that like, hey, that's not going to work that way. You're going to get a whole bunch of, a huge grave site after this. So then they ended up having to work together. And he kind of saw a miracle at play of like a human. Well, I mean, that could be the thing that radicalized him, is the simple idea of like a human and a machine had to come together to like save the day. And so there's hope in the future that like this doesn't have to end in this kind of horrifying war. And that's exactly how the Matrix 3 ends, is like the human and the machines coming together and like saving the day.
Perfect. I love it.
because we spent 3 movies waiting to see how Neo was going to win against the machines, right? Like how the humans would win the war. And then
how
finally
the prophecy
it was,
will culminate.
and then ultimately the answer was peace. And it was like, oh, powerful, you know? So that could be kind of like echoed in the show again here.
I almost like the
really
idea that he feels like he's been betrayed by the agent by the end.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, like kind of in a different direction. Like, I think I like the thing that radicalizes him. That is that he does feel like he gets betrayed. Like the agent wins. The agent stops the guy who's going to essentially create, who's going to kill a whole bunch of people by exiting them all at the same time. But at the same time, like the way that Morpheus treats the agents, you know, like you all look the same to me, and like there's some like real animosity there, and I almost like kind of the heel turn from his perspective.
Yeah,
where the agent goes from like saving people to I'm just doing my job. I mean, hell, maybe the agent is like, okay, we've like bigger picture done, time to execute the program, and like just murks the rest of Morpheus's crew.
Well, what if he like finds out it seems like things are cool, but the agent is still an agent. His primary concern is still like capturing living people and putting them into the Matrix. So maybe like Morpheus has to, maybe like the ending we came up with is like the second to last episode, and then you have this kind of weird, like that was like a false ending, and the real ending is Morpheus realizing like, oh crap, this guy is like, you know, he's manipulated me to get information on like Zion or something, and so then like he's gonna go and try to, you know, knock this whole thing out, and I have to now, and so then it also makes it where the protag, like the real hero of the entire story, was always Morpheus.
I really like that, actually.
That could be kind of cool,
really
because
good.
we can still get a lot of the same things we wanted. And then it can kind of take us into like but the grim reality is that the Matrix 1, 2, and 3 still happen. You know, it's not all sunshine and rainbows.
Exactly.
Yeah, and
Ooh,
like you said,
perfect.
and he has that crappy attitude. Like, gives you right. He totally, during some of the interrogation stuff, yeah, he absolutely has like a long storied history of like things being crappy with agents, you know. So that'd be good, because the guy, you know, like you said, we kind of, his save the cat ideology is that he doesn't want humans to suffer. He doesn't want them to die. But the grim reality is that that's within the confines of them being infinite slaves.
Exactly.
And I could see his naivety being, I know we need to fight for our you know, like the human freedom here, but isn't there a way that we could work with the machines? And then for most of the season, he's proven right. Like, we're working with the guy who's got our same interests at heart, and then like you said, flip, and Morpheus has been the protagonist the whole time.
But I do like the idea of Morpheus having this naive idea that like, hey, we could work with the machines, and then he gives up on that idea, because then that mantle gets picked up again by Neo, who's like, no, that was right. And then he does save the day through that. And if it wasn't for that, you know, and even when that happens, Morpheus is the one hanging out down in a hole being like, oh, it was Neo, he saved us. It's like, you were almost there, man, but you weren't the chosen one. You know, you lost it, you know, so the real chosen one came and had to come and, you know, complete the whole thing.
That's
I'm into
That's
it,
a beautiful
man.
arc right there.
Yeah, you guys made me
full circle.
care about the Matrix again.
I want to go back and watch them now. That's great. That's awesome.
I actually just went and rewatched the Animatrix again. Relatively, I watch it every few years. Like, it's just so good.
I haven't
So
seen
well
those
put
in
together.
forever. I gotta watch those.
Yeah, they're great. There's my favorite one's called World Record. It's about
man,
a runner, a sprinter, and it's so good. It's just, well, it does a great job on the Animatrix as a whole. Was so good for expanding the universe. So the thing I was complaining about with you know, Star Wars is that, for as bad as the prequels are, they actually expanded the Star Wars universe. The plot in the prequels wasn't just another Death Star, and it was also like, because of the prequels, pod races are just as Star Wars to me as like X-Wings are. But then you get 7, 8, and 9, and it's just everything feels like a rehash, and it's just like, it's an even bigger Death Star, you know? And so they didn't expand. The only thing they technically expanded the universe with was like force healing. And like the dyad, you know, it's like just not stuff I love. But the Animatrix did a great job with that, where it's like World Record is about a guy who Well, it's really cool because there's a monologue that starts it off, and it's the Oracle talking. She's like, most people who end up getting out of the Matrix are, and she describes Neo. She's like, they're very curious. They don't feel like things are right. You know, they have this sense of, you know, not belonging, and they're very like, you know, weird. But other people do it through an entirely different means. And so it's like, we're not talking about that guy today. We're talking about this other guy, and this guy who, you know, he's a runner. His thing is that, like, he basically, you know how Neo can bend the Matrix as long as he just understands that. This guy has inadvertently figured that out, and so he's like breaking world records like every time he runs, because he's basically like pushing his body past what it should be able to do. And it ends with like he attracts agents, and he actually runs so fast he runs out of the Matrix. Like, he wakes himself up in the machine. Yeah, it was like, oh, that's sick. That was really cool.
That's awesome.
And then when
It's
you know,
pretty awesome.
they end up grabbing him, and then when he wakes up again, he's inside the Matrix again, and now he's a cripple. And so it's like they rewrote his life so that he couldn't run and stuff like that. Like, it's really
I don't know if I've seen that one. I got to go back and rewatch that.
It's dope.
It's real good.
Super dope.
Yeah. All of them have that kind of like the old school horror kind of ending in a way.
Nice.
Yeah.
And
Good point.
except for the haunted house. The haunted house is kind of you know, it's kind of there and it's gone.
Well, yeah, that one is like, it's kind of the sorrow of like, oh, there was something magical and now it's gone.
Yeah.
But it's less scary, right? There's the other one too, is like the one with the kid, which is because like that kid shows up in the third Matrix, and you're like, hey Neo, what's up? You're my hero, and like everyone's like, who the hell is this guy? And it's like, well, you had to watch the Animatrix. You know, Neo saved him from the school or whatever, and so that one has like a weird ending because it looks sad because the kid kills himself, but what really happened is like that was his waking up out of the Matrix. And so Neo kind of walked him through it. But there's a really good like crazy horror one where it's these people are trying to actually reprogram in the real world a sentinel, and while they do it, they end up like having this kind of intra matrix situation, kind of like when they do the fight training, and they bring it in there to try to communicate with it. Well, later real sentinels show up and start messing everyone up, and the thing ends up helping and killing the sentinels, but everyone dies except for the girl who's dying. And so he hooks her into like that intra matrix thing, and she like, it's like this kind of Twilight horror of like, now until I die, I'm gonna be stuck in this world with the sentinel, you know. It's like crazy.
It's that one's got the most that one is the most like Bong Joon-ho out of all those to me.
Great way to put that. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, very much so. Also, like, yeah, Bong Joon-ho means like a David Lynch.
Oh yeah,
all the really weird color stuff and all that, and like the psychedelic when they live when they're in the Matrix and all that. So, okay, awesome, man. Well, yeah. So we'll go ahead and I'm gonna order a couple seasons of this show.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
We'll move on.
Greenlit.
cut it, print it.
Yeah, no, I love it. It's great. Yeah, we should do properties we know more often. So we'll see. All right, awesome, guys. So yeah, unless you guys have anything to add, man, I think that's an episode.
No, that's a fun one.
That's a good one.
All right, cool. Well, awesome, guys.
We'll see you guys next week.
Yeah, see you guys next
We'll
week.
see y'all next week. And beforehand, though, real quick, Carrie, where can people find you at?
You can find me on Instagram. I'm nub.fist.style, hence the nub. I'm technically on Twitter at the Steel Claw 1. And that's it. I don't think I have a Facebook anymore. So,
All right, rock and roll. What do you got, Josh?
I'm on Twitter and Instagram, J Lindquist BP. You can find me on there.
All right, awesome, guys.
Yeah.
That's a wrap, man. We'll catch you guys next week. Thanks for watching.
All right. See you guys next week.
And today, the topic we're going to be doing is Men in Black, the show.
Because why not?
So, want to take a departure from specifically the Men in Black that we all grew up and know and love, and kind of go like first principles with it and think about it from the